Up bright and early, 6:30 a.m. to check the culture. Looking good. I'll be taking it out in 1 hour at 7:30. You must be wearing the appropriate gear to bake sourdough bread. Preferably goofy type of pajamas. Okay, so at 7:30, want to be exact, and the bulk culture is now out of the fridge, marked, and I'm going to wait for it to go up. I'm going to give it about 4 hours, and then I'll begin mixing the dough. I will keep you posted. Well, it's risen as much as it has to, and if you notice that it started to collapse inside a little bit, just started, that means the yeast is exhausted. And if you don't use it now, the yeast is all going to die. So I waited till the last minute because I was watching television, and now I'm going to begin to mix everything in the mixer, and everything is ready. And here we go. Important that you remember, before you start mixing the bulk culture in with the flour and water to make the dough, you must take 2 ounces or whatever you're going to use. I use 2 ounces, and you put it into your seed container so that you have the seed to start another batch of bread whenever you're ready to do it. And that's going to go directly into the refrigerator once it's mixed. So I've taken 2 ounces of the culture and I put it into the seed culture container, which weighed 10¼ ounces. So now I have 12¼ on the scale, which means I have 2 ounces of culture for the starter in my container. I'm going to put water and flour in with it, 2 ounces of each. So I'll have a total of 6 ounces. And that will be my seed. 2 ounces of water with the 2 ounces of culture. Now the seed culture has been mixed in with the water. Now I add the 2 ounces of bread flour to the seed culture. Mix the flour in thoroughly. Scrape down the sides of your cup so that you don't have all of the dry culture on the sides. The sides are scraped down. Cover the culture. Put the date and time, and if you put it directly in the fridge or what you did with it, and put it into the fridge. Like so. Now we begin to mix the dough. All of the ingredients are right by the mixer, and everything is ready to go, and that's what we're going to do. Mix the dough. The remaining culture, the bulk culture, goes into the mixing bowl first. You'll notice the gluten structure, everything hanging stringy there. Next, you want to add your water to the culture. Put the mixing bowl back on the mixer, the water and culture together. I'm doing it in a mixer, but you do this however you're doing it, either by hand or in a different type of mixer, a little mixer, whatever you're doing. But you're just mixing the starter and the water together. The culture and water are thoroughly mixed. I'm going to start adding the flour and then the salt. You don't want to forget the salt in the end. And we're putting in the flour. I'm putting in a scoop at a time because I have so much of it here. Flour's all in the mixer with the water and the culture. Salt is not in yet. Begin the mixing process. At about this point, I start adding the salt. Okay, the salt is all in. Okay, it seems well mixed now. I'm going to do what they call an autolyse, which is just to shut it off like so. And then I put a cover over it, and I let it sit for about an hour so that everything mixes together thoroughly by itself. This is not necessary. You don't have to do it, but it is done, and I do it. I'll get my fermenting container ready, or proofing container, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to line it with a little, just spray it with a little bit of oil, so it doesn't stick in there when I try to take it out. Remove from mixing bowl and put in proofing bucket, and lid is going on. Now I'll let it sit there for an hour, and then I'll do a stretch. Dough is in proofing container. I'll leave it in there for 1 hour, and then I'll take it out, I'll stretch it, and I'll return it to the container. Dough put on counter for first stretch. Stretching dough. The idea of stretching the dough like this is to strengthen the gluten so you could get a nice bounce when it's in the oven rising. You can see the strength of the gluten. If you stretch it and stretch it, you could practically see through it. Now it's just ripped a little, but that's no big deal. And you fold the dough. And now you're going to put it back into the container to let it proof a little longer. Back in the container for another, supposed to be an hour, but I'm only going to make it 45 minutes. I even cut the first proofing down to 45 minutes instead of an hour, and then I stretched it. It doesn't have to be exact. Second stretch of the dough. Fold it up, fold it, and put back in container to proof just a little bit more, and that's the end. Back in container again after stretching for the second time. I'm going to let it proof 45 more minutes, and then I'm going to divide and shape the loaves. Go from container and prepare to divide and shape. In this case, it will be for 8 loaves, 1 pound, 11 1/4 ounces each. Divide the dough by pressing down. Do not use this as a knife to cut. Press down. I'm cutting this into approximately 8 pieces, 1 pound, 11 1/2 ounces each. I will now weigh 1 pound, 11 1/4 ounces. Form a tight ball with the dough for each loaf. You're making multiple loaves. As you shape them into a ball, I cover them with a damp cloth so they don't dry out while I'm finishing the balance of the loaves. Once all the loaves are cut to size and rolled into a tight ball, you take them and flatten them out, and you're going to make them into loaves, the shape of regular loaves. I look to shape the loaves into long loaves, oblongs. And I have all of the forms, couches, they call them, already floured. They have to have flour in them so it doesn't stick. That's half of the loaves shaped and in the bannetons. I have 4 more to do, and then they go in a refrigerator. Now the last loaf is shaped, ready to go into the banneton, the one empty banneton, and then they're all going in the fridge to be retarded overnight. I'll bake them at about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sprinkled a little bit of flour on the top of each loaf because I'm going to cover them with a damp cloth, and I don't want the dough to stick to the cloth if it rises very much in the fridge, although it doesn't usually rise very much in the fridge. The first 4 loaves are in the fridge, and I have them covered with a damp cloth. 4 are going in now, and remaining 4 loaves are in there. I just have to put a cover over them. Okay, all done. 8 loaves in the fridge will be retarded overnight, and I'll bake them in the morning. Okay, it's 5:30 a.m., and we're getting ready to bake the bread. The loaves are going to be put on this big peel and put into the oven over there, and we're going to bake them. Everything is at the ready. So the loaves are coming out of the fridge at this moment and are going to be put on the big peel. Looks like the loaves rose about 40% from what the size they were when I put them in. All the loaves are scored and ready to go into the oven. All loaded. Now some water for steam. And now we wait about 25-30 minutes and they'll be done. 25 minutes. What a bounce on these things. Man, oh man. Finito. Look at those loaves. Beautiful. All done. 205-degree inside temperature. And so, out of the oven, and that is how you bake sourdough bread.